Gentlemen, I don't even want to pretend, and I don't need to around you. I have been following the NBA, but I've been kind of distracted with a couple other tournaments right now, and I think you have too. But I've always been checking in. I am kind of following the narrative, so I do have some things to say, and I have a slightly different idea for these videos in terms of maybe playoff rounds and seeing something I might be able to do. I don't know. We'll see how I can figure that one out. Anyway, I wanted to touch base because our player of the month is up in March, and that's usually when I try and do this, although I've been crazy behind. So we are going to do one. It might be a little shorter because of the whole madness issue, but either way, talk about the NBA, talk about the teams, talk about our pool. Let's see how it goes. NBA first, because it's one of those things that maybe I haven't been paying attention to the NBA as much as I should. And maybe it's like the middle child because it's kind of acting out. It's, starting to rebel a bit, maybe experimenting with some crazy drugs, maybe getting caught doing things that they shouldn't be doing with other people at times and places. You know what I'm talking about? Middle child syndrome right now. NBA is nuts. I mean, the basketball's fine. I mean, that's all the same kind of stuff, who's healthy, who's not. But even in the healthy part, when we go to our players, I took a bunch of people that I actually still think were great picks that just will not qualify because they all got hurt or were resting people. Plus, now we're seeing what happens when teams like the Clippers are healthy and don't rest people. But that's not new. This has been the last couple of years. That's been the saga of the NBA about how it probably should only really be 7 games, but 82 makes more money. So let's just do that. I'm talking about this season in terms of how crazy things are. I mean, we do have just before we have the sale of a team that I never thought would be sold in Cuban's Mavericks, or partially, to someone that is so politically charged that the league wanted to hide it as much as possible in terms of who was actually one of the spearheads of it. And then only to have that franchise, get rid of its generational player maybe a couple years before he's actually even going to peak because he maybe is a little bit bigger and yet not, and just led you to a fun. We talked about this. I don't want to rehash. Just putting that into context. Then we have a potential of a sports reporter in Stephen A. Smith, who I don't think is actually, but they're polling to see if he would actually be able to run after he said he could run for president. And he's like, if I really tried, I could figure it out. I mean, I guess based on what it's taken to get there, sure, maybe. But what's your first action? Pick a fight with one of the best players of all time and over something. Well, maybe depending on your side, maybe he didn't pick the fight, but he is certainly the one that is making comments, about trying to say that he would, if he steps to him, he'll fight him, even though he admits that, 3 fingers of this particular gentleman, LeBron James, would crush him. Again, is Stephen A. Smith getting all the love he needs? Is he the middle child? Is he whining and complaining so more people pay attention to him? Because what he's realizing is player podcasts are kind of outdoing what the old sports reporter was doing. So you either have to be a good sports reporter, which I kind of used to be in terms of some journalistic aspects, or you can just go outrageous, call people names, and pick random fights. So we got that. And then the last couple weeks, I think actually at the time of recording, maybe the last 10 days, 2 teams who are going to make the playoffs and actually could be dark horses to represent the Western Conference. I don't think they're necessarily favorites, nor will they get there, but there's an argument that they're at least in the Western Conference Finals, and then who knows? Fire their coaches, just Memphis. I mean, you've got the face of your franchise who can't stop making gun references when he is the last player that should be doing that. You fire that coach. Oh, okay. Maybe, there's stuff going to go, even though at one point about a month ago, they were in line to potentially be a number 2 seed. And before last year, do you forget they were the number 2 seed in the West then too? They only had 1 year off. So it's not like it's been epic failures. And then you also fire someone who recently won a championship in Denver and has had to juggle a lineup. Now, granted, we can be critical about how he's doing so, and we can certainly be critical about, maybe Russ costing them a game recently, but I guess we can't blame Russ on that one. It's like leaving a dog, and I'm stealing this from Bill Simmons. If you leave the pantry door open and the dog eats it, are you mad at the dog? Or are you mad at your son who left the pantry door open? Yes, I guess we can blame the coach on that one. You can't let Russ all over the game, and you kind of did. But what is going on? So what's about to happen in these playoffs? I mean, what else can happen? Or we are getting dangerously close to the Mike Tyson zone. I was going to say Donald Trump zone, but most say Mike Tyson zone so we can make it feel better. And for those who aren't familiar, that's when you see his name in the news, anything could follow it. Legitimately, anything could follow it, and you wouldn't necessarily be surprised. We're kind of getting there. I just deep down, someone needs to give the NBA a hug. I don't know who it's going to be, but it's about to be playoff time, so we might not have time for that. But speaking of which, let's do a quick check-in on what playoffs mean and maybe some of the teams. I'm not going to do a tiers as I've done before, just because we don't need to. We know who's making the playoffs at this point. At this point, I normally do tiers. I don't need to do tiers because the playoff matchups are just about set. We've got 2 games left at the time we're recording and hopefully posting. But even more so, we already know. We got our top 10. It's not completely confirmed what we're doing here, but we're fairly certain. And I think even though there might be some jockeying for positions and certainly some spots that could technically flip, but our matchups in the East look pretty solid here, and I'll get to the matchups or potential matchups in a second. But the East is the way I'm used to it. I would make the argument, and granted, I have Atlanta. I don't think they're going to be a legit threat to either one of the top teams if they get through and if the Heat or the Bulls don't do anything. I think that 1-8 matchup is not going to be super tough. I even like Orlando a lot. I think defensively they could give Boston maybe a run in a couple games, but I see our top 2 going through. But after that, Magic could put up a fight. I wouldn't want to play them. Pistons is what I meant to say against the Knicks, and the 4-5 is a coin toss. But that's the East that we know. That is the way of playoff breakdowns that we know. And we certainly have our, Charlotte and Washington in the race to the bottom here. It looks like it's going to be Washington, but Charlotte likes to throw a game from here now. But here what I'm actually talking about and what I'm more confused is what's going on with the West. So like I said in the player piece, we've got 2 teams that are in the top 6 that have just let their coaches go. So what does that look like come playoff time? Clippers. Does anybody want to play the Clippers right now? The answer is no, because they're healthy. But is anyone confident that they will continue to be healthy? Again, hard pass. If we ended up with either Golden State or Memphis against LA, that's probably going to be the primetime series. Denver Clippers would obviously be amazing. But is anyone really happy about like a Minnesota matchup? If you're the Thunder and you got to play a team that had the potential last year to play spoiler, there are no easy matchups here. The only thing I think is hilarious is Dallas, with all their efforts, does manage to squeak in because we've got it all set up. So tiers, like I said, not as important as our potential playoff matchups, which right now, if it finished, this is what it would be. And I'm actually not so sure that a whole lot will necessarily change, but let's see. We do have 2 more games to go. In terms of our player breakdown, you heard it. Coby White, Player of the Month. That marks now, I believe, the second time we've had a Player of the Month where nobody's getting points. It also marks the fact that SGA was the clear number 1 pick, has won 3 Player of the Months, did also get their way on the all-tournament team, and is looking like a relative lock for MVP. So well done, Chainer. If you're going to get the first person out of the gate, you might as well have the person who's bringing down the most, because that's going to be some all-tournament, all-NBA, etc. On the defensive front, because of these injuries, where this is Wemby's award if he's healthy, but obviously he's not. I mentioned it before, but I mean, Draymond's in the hunt. I've heard people throw out, because Cleveland's been so strong. Mobley's getting some love. I actually have no idea which way this is going to go, but I guess we'll have to just wait and see. For me, in terms of if we just break down each kind of player, I'm riddled with injuries and inconsistencies. Unfortunately, Horst had to deal with some injuries as well, although Donovan Mitchell looks like they're going to be getting some points. I do think he'll be okay here. Chainer, big swings, big misses, but obviously some big hits. I think you're going to be huge on the defensive front, and I definitely think that SGA is going. So in terms of the player pools, you're looking pretty sweet. Shea with Giannis, I think you're looking okay as well. You got a couple guys who might score in. Getting Cat late, I think, might help you out. You also got hit with some of the injury bug, but let's see how it rolls. And then Rennie, we'll see how it goes here, because you got Tatum, you got Jokic, you got Booker. LeBron's getting names up there. Gobert is getting some love. So most of your guys might actually end up paying off here. So I look like the brunt. I think I've got the worst squad based on injuries, and I'm taking either Chainer or Rennie as my bet for who will end up having the highest points in the player. But again, I've been wrong, obviously, a ton. Just revisiting, I will update now officially. I don't like jinxing it, so the second Sunday is done, I will get rid of the teams that are not getting us any points. I will obviously then too kind of do the two people. It looks like Rennie, unless Charlotte really, really helps you out, which obviously would piss Shay off. Looks like you are going to get the -2, but I wouldn't feel so bad for you because the rest of your teams are making the playoffs, and that's a pretty good haul. So I think you're going to be doing just fine, including having, the top two teams in the East and the second best team in the West. So you're looking all right. Shay, I think you're probably pretty happy here as well. You avoided, if Charlotte can avoid it, the bottom, although you only have about half your teams making it. I have all but one that look like they're in. Horst has got to be pretty happy. He's going to get points for everybody but the Raptors as well. So he's got all in but one. He's got a few teams to make some runs. Chainer, it's looking like some of your picks aren't going to look so great. You might be taking down the other negative. I do believe it's Utah right now that is in the basement, so we can double check that. You also have some teams that are on the fringe here, and so some that aren't getting you a whole lot of points. So you're really putting your eggs in a couple baskets, and like I said, probably your player pool is your strongest way forward. So a whole lot can go. I think of every year we've done this, there's always been kind of one person who's in the lead. I think in this particular case, there's certainly people I would change teams with, but everyone's got that pro, everyone's got that con. Guess we're just gonna have to wait and see. As I said, I'm going to try and check in a bit more often as the rounds go and the playoffs kind of go through. We'll see if I'm able to do that. I think I can, because as crazy as I think our league is, our pool actually might be coming down to the short strokes here. So either way, should be fun. It's almost playoff time. Madness is done, so NBA can pick it up. I'm excited. Hopefully you are too. See you soon, gents.